they own the microphone. That's what the crazy part is. And it's like all of a sudden you don't talk their talk and walk their walk. Then they just shut the microphone off or take it away from you. Hey everyone, welcome back to LED Live. What happened to hip hop?
Find out on this episode of LED Live.
Well, we want to thank you guys for joining us for another episode of LED Live. Today we have a guest on our show. His name is Akande Davis. And Akande is going to talk to us today about hip hop. So Akande, welcome to the show. We're glad that you could join us today, and we're very interested to see what you have to say about this subject. I'm curious, are you someone who used to listen to hip hop?
Yeah, I used to, and I still do. Not the same anymore, not the same kind of hip hop, but yeah, absolutely. Hip hop was a way of life when I was a kid, you know, and growing into it, as with a lot of things in life, music is one of those things that's super impactful and super influential for any youth kind of growing up, right? If you ever want to know what a kid's being influenced by, why they dress the way they do, listen to the things they do, watch the movies they do, you can usually pinpoint a lot of that into music. So when I was like 10 or 11, I first uncovered this awesome thing, which maybe some of you guys know, it was Kazaa or LimeWire. And I could bootleg music. I don't know, do you guys remember that?
Oh yeah. Napster was kind of the original.
Bearshare. Yeah, it was like the Napster 2.0. And so I kind of started bootlegging a lot of music, and you know, really it's no holds bar, which is kind of a crazy thing to think about, but you can download anything. So I was downloading a lot of Eminem, 50 Cent, pretty much anything that came out, I was hooked, and I would listen to as much rap as I possibly could. So fast forward about 10 or 15 years, I had to choose where I wanted to go to school, and there was a university in Florida called Full. But my heart and my mind was set on, I want to make it in the music industry, and this is the quickest way that I could do that. I'm going to become a recording engineer to get my foot in the door. So yeah, fast forward, I went down Full Sail, and that's really when all the layers started peeling off, and the things that I treasured so much and I thought were so awesome got a lot darker, and the real meaning and message that was embedded in the music was blatantly revealed to me.
You know, I used to listen to a lot of hip hop growing up as well. And I know I don't look like I would,
boys,
but no, seriously, like I think hip hop was probably my favorite genre of music.
That's even
You're
funnier.
laughing, you know, like come on, man. I used to be like this. No, but I used to listen to a lot of it, and it does seem like it is getting increasingly dark. I don't know. I mean, I haven't listened to it in years, and the little amount that I have been exposed to it, it's like, whoa, man, this just seems like a lot more darker than what I remember it to be.
This weird hip hop, it has like this style that just kind of crosses all boundaries, because now you hear it in country music and stuff. You got this like country rap crap, I guess is what you call it. And they got
no way.
And like, yeah, so it's like in pop, you just hear the rap influence, the hip hop influence in all genres anymore. I think that's interesting.
Well, and what was kind of, I guess, revealed to me in the most profound way was not even so much the content. So like, I would listen to a ton of really misogynistic songs, you know, songs about dealing drugs, you know, you're gonna shoot this guy or get this guy before he gets you. And none of that really bothered me. But as I started kind of uncovering some of the other elements of it, that's when it really kind of took me back. And I don't know, maybe it's because, I don't know why this is the case, but usually when something is kind of covered up, or the devil tries to cover something up with something attractive, and once you take off that attractive layer and you kind of see it for what it is, it becomes really unappealing, right? So when I started looking into hip hop a little bit more and learning about kind of what I'm going to cover here, this secret society kind of connection and the hidden agenda behind it, I was like, whoa, this stuff is a lot more evil and has a lot more hidden within it than I originally thought. And I think that's kind of what hit me. So it wasn't even like I was listening to this song about, hey, I'm gonna go shoot this guy and sleep with your girlfriend, and I was like, oh, I hate that stuff. It was more like, whoa, this guy's connected to this, and this why this symbolism is in it. And you kind of start digging a little bit deeper, and you're like, wait, hold on, DMX is talking about his deal with the devil and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, whoa, this is not what I signed up for, more or less. And yeah, that's when it really hit home for me, at least. So in particular, in kind of this LED Live, what I wanted to cover was hip hop, secret societies, and a hidden agenda. And really how hip hop has kind of turned into this thing where there was kind of a shift in where the content might have been negative, and now the content has a complete hidden agenda that's being more and more blatantly shown in the videos, in the song lyrics, and pretty much everything that associated with hip hop. So when you think about secret societies, I mean, for you guys, you know, I know you cover a lot of this, but what comes to mind for you? And obviously I put some very popular symbols up on the screen, but what comes to mind when you think secret societies?
I think dollar bill.
Freemason, Illuminati, Skull and Bones,
Yeah.
George Bush.
Dark in the shadows, 9/11 thing.
I think it's really the people that are like
Conspiracy.
running the world behind the scene. And it's like nobody really knows the full truth about it. It seems like there's been a lot of speculation so far that people discredit it because they're like, well, nobody can prove it. But I think it's totally real. There's secret families and things that are behind the scenes that are actually running the world.
Yeah, actually, and you guys hit on a lot of the things I'm going to cover. So, you know, first off, yeah, like when somebody thinks secret societies, usually they think conspiracy theory, which, you know, makes sense. And I'm not necessarily saying that every secret society conspiracy theory is true. And I don't even want to dive too deep into that. But when you think of Freemasons or Skull and Crossbones or the Bavarian Illuminati started by Adam Weishaupt, a lot of those elements are carried into hip hop, and we see it very early on in the art form. So hip hop came in around like mid 80s, mid 1980s, late 1980s, early 1990s. But around 1995 is when you started seeing the first kind of peaks of Illuminati and Freemasonry and New World Order being mentioned in rap. So as we kind of go into, you know, a little bit about this, I wanted to give it some context. The first time that I was able to really find when this kind of came up is from an artist by the name of Prodigy. Prodigy is an artist that was part of this group called Mobb Deep. And one of the lyrics that he had in the song he was featured on with LL Cool J was Illuminati wants my mind, soul, and my body. Secret society trying to keep their eye on me. Now, this was pretty unstandard for hip hop. And as soon as, you know, someone like Prodigy, who was at the top of his game, he was 18, 19 at the time, says Illuminati wants my mind, soul, and my body, you know, that just kind of opened the floodgates for people to try secret societies, Illuminati, for a culture that had never really been exposed to it. So this was kind of a big stepping stone in hip hop to start to lay the foundation of, hey, what is this? And is it in the art form? And to kind of piggyback on what Scotty said, these secret societies are kind of associated with running the world. And there's no reason that music or media or hip hop even is kind of going to be left alone, you know, is going to be out of that equation. So it was interesting seeing Prodigy talk about this in this song.
Yeah, he's really deep into secret societies. I know he has an album called The Hegelian Dialectic, if that's correct. And yeah, it's pretty much just the philosophy used within secret society, that whole concept of creating the desired effect out of chaos, create peace out of chaos. So the same person who creates the peace is the same one who created the chaos. So, I mean, this is just, it's a rabbit hole. You can spend days, years of your life trying to just wrap your head around what's out there.
What I think is so interesting is how they are so out in the open. Like they'll talk about it in terms of like, this is what we're doing and, you know, this is where it's going.
But it sounds so ridiculous. So it's like hiding in plain sight, sort of.
Yeah. When you hear lyrics where they're constantly saying, I sold my soul to the devil, and people are like, then, man, you're crazy. They didn't sell their soul to the devil. Well, listen to this lyric, this lyric, this lyric. Oh, it's a metaphor.
Yeah,
oh,
they're
it's
just making
just
fun of it.
It's just something to, you know, sell
Sounds
records.
cool.
Yeah, I think the oldest thing I've ever heard about the Illuminati, I don't know if you're going to touch on it, and I didn't know about it until later because you hear these things as a child. I mean, I was in elementary school hearing Tupac. And there was a record after he died that came out, and it showed him on a cross, and it had a little warning under there. It said, this is not a mockery of Jesus Christ or something. But it was called Machiavelli, and that was his new name, and which was a person who faked his death or something. And I think the album title was called Killuminati, and I had no idea what that was back then, but I started watching interviews with Tupac, and he said, yeah, when I was in prison, I started hearing people talk about the Illuminati and stuff, and he started digging into it.
I saw interviews with Tupac where he was actually coming out saying, "I'm sick and tired of them trying to run me and control me and tell me what to do."
That might have been DMX.
Tupac was
Tupac.
Yeah, I've seen some interviews with Tupac saying the same thing too.
Wow.
Do you think so? It could be sort of compared to a concept. So anyone with those type of tendencies or seeking that kind of control, they can be labeled the Illuminati. That's why you keep hearing it pop up.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting thought that, you know, like Tupac, for example, he pulls a lot from historical figures. So obviously there was a historical figure, Machiavelli, and yeah, he calls himself Machiavelli. And then that idea of Illuminati, he literally talks about, you know, taking down the Illuminati more or less. But there's kind of a separation or a distinction I've really noticed where the Illuminati is closely tied, at least in hip hop culture, with like world takeover, right? And Freemasons are kind of like in the US, and they're not as powerful as the Illuminati, but the upper echelon of Freemasonry is in with the Illuminati. But the idea of Illuminati could really be, from a hip hop cultural standpoint, anyone who's in power, who's an elite, and who has control of this whole culture, right? This whole hip hop culture. What's popular, what's not popular, what gets traction, what doesn't get traction. So I don't think, hip hop doesn't really define there's this one group of people, you know, and sometimes you'll hear like Bilderberg Group mentioned, that kind of thing, or Bill Gates is, you know, kind of the in the crosshairs quite a bit. But yeah, it's never really nailed down. It's just kind of like this thing, you know, it's kind of like control or something like that. So to give some more context around it, I also wanted to bring up Goody Mob and then another group called Poor Righteous Teachers, who both came out in 1995. So this is kind of, you know, coming off the piggyback of Prodigy talking about this, where they talk about, you know, tagging your skin, New World Order, cell therapy, manipulating DNA. If you advance just one more slide for Poor Righteous Teachers, they have a whole album called New World Order where they take a clip of George Bush Sr. talking, and they literally, you know, point to the fact that George Bush is saying, what's at stake is more than one small country. It's a big idea, a new world order. So in 1995 is really when this idea started bubbling up. The reason I kind of give this context to lay this groundwork is because I think the idea of secret societies in hip hop and systems of control can really be drawn to one artist in particular who really went all the way to, so to speak. And that artist you guys have covered before, but that's Jay-Z. So let's talk about H to the Izzo, V to the Izzy.
Mr. J-Hovah.
Yeah, so Jay-Z, obviously one of the biggest artists of our time. When you think about a rapper, when you think about worldwide acclaim, Jay-Z is up there. Probably one of the most celebrated rap artists of all time. So he came out in 1996 with his album, The Blueprint. And the album itself is riddled with a lot of different kind of what I would say occult symbolism. But what's in particular is he has a song on his album, Reasonable Doubt, where he says, "I never prayed to God, I prayed to Gotti. That's right, it's wicked. The life I live it ain't asking for forgiveness for my sins and ends." And then he goes and he says, "Stop screaming. You know the demon said it's best to die, and even if J-Hovah witness, bet he'll never testify." So he's really kind of taken it to that next level. And on this song, on the chorus, he samples Prodigy saying, "Illuminati wants my mind, soul, and my body." And he even samples another artist saying, "The New World Order is coming to take over." So he kind of, I don't know, with this song, in my opinion, puts a stamp on where he kind of stands. And the whole song is pretty dark, pretty evil. But this is the first peek that Jay-Z kind of has as he's getting his foot wet into this kind of secret society occult symbolism.
Right. Wow. We can't pick and choose with this. If music is an expression of the artist and you hold it to a standard, just because they release something that you don't agree with or you think they're making fun of, you can't detach that from the person. You can't like pick and choose which song.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll buy the album, but I only listen to these certain tracks or something.
Yeah.
I have heard people say that, you know, I just skip over this one song. But yeah, I mean, clearly he's into this, you know.
And my philosophy too when approaching it is, you know, if an artist has one song and they talk about something, maybe they're not sold out to that one thing, right? But you kind of expect to see a pattern. If they're really into this thing, or if they're into whatever they're talking about, for any artist, for any person, for anything, there should be a pattern that exists. So another kind of indicator of this pattern that exists is that same time he started his own record label, and his record label was actually called Rockefeller Records. Now, you could do a little bit of digging. It's not hidden, it's not veiled, but this was actually based on J.D. Rockefeller and the Rockefeller family. So the Rockefeller family, you guys will probably be able to speak to this as well, but one of the richest families in history of the United States, very powerful, very influential, and very synonymous with Freemasonry and secret societies because of the stature that they have. When you think of Rockefeller Plaza with the bull out in front, and just really the name itself and the weight that it holds, I think is very telling of why he made the decisions that he made. Everything is done with intention, right? So in any kind of art, when you make a decision, it's very intentional why you made that decision.
Yeah, I think we kind of try to establish this with our analyzation of movies. It's like if you have one particular director that makes a certain type of movie, you can make an assumption about that director, but until you see other projects that person has worked on and they're all similar in that vein, then you can pretty much back up and say, well, they're either into this or they're totally tied to this theology or whatever. And I think the same thing exists here. If Jay-Z's coming out with one album, he's got all these things, and then he's naming things and putting the symbols on his artwork, and you can pretty much be like, he's pretty tied into this.
Yeah, it takes an incredible amount of work, and they're investing into this. So the fact that they're not in line with it that would be a surprise to me.
Right. Yeah. And kind of like religion, like, you sit down, you talk to a Christian enough times, you're going to hear the buzzwords, you're going to hear the things that are connected to their life because that's what you're into.
Right.
And it's like, this is what he's into. And so you're going to see this dovetailed through all of his art, through all of his lyrics, and,
Like Lecrae said, I'm not a Christian rapper, I'm just a rapper who's a Christian, and it comes out in my lyrics or whatever.
Right.
I've never seen this logo. I thought Rockefeller Records had like a face of a kid or something, but it looks like a hypnotic bottle of potion or something. I just think that's interesting. It kind of reminds me of 3 6 Mafia. Their record label was Hypnotized Minds. It had a Grim Reaper with a pendulum clock, and it's like, they're telling you right now, we're hypnotizing you, Hypnotized Minds.
Yeah, I mean, the name 3 6 Mafia even.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, people just kind of move on by that because they like the songs, but, spiritual things are spiritually discerned. So, and again, this is kind of a trend and a pattern. So as we go on to look at his sophomore release, and I'm sorry, earlier I said that was Blueprint, his debut. Reasonable Doubt was his debut. Blueprint was a sophomore. But this is when he came out with a song called Izzo, which is one of his most popular songs. And when he kind of, again, really starts saying a lot of things that define his character and define his artistry. So this is where he introduces that pretty infamous line, H to the Izzo, V to the Izze, and he spells out Hovah. And if you know anything about hip hop, everybody calls Jay-Z J-Hovah. Obviously, we can make that connection pretty clearly because we're Christians, but Jehovah is the name of God in the Bible, right? Or at least one of the interpretations of the name of the Tetragrammaton. So the fact that he's calling himself Hovah, that he's calling himself God, really should make people step back. And as we'll look into some of these other, pictures and whatnot, he's very closely tied with the 5% Nation, who believe that they are gods in themselves, or even with Freemasonry, that you ascend to a higher spiritual plane, a higher spiritual understanding. So again, I was kind of blind to this for a long time. This was one of the first things that kind of someone pointed out to me and hit home, like, wait, why am I calling him Hovah? Like, what does that even mean? And then you start comparing that with scripture, and you even just see the name right there. It's like J-Hovah, like, whoa, this guy is calling himself God.
That's right. It's those questions, asking yourself those questions will really bring things to light.
Are you going to get into Kanye's kind of connection to him at all?
Right. They were used to.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, because yeah.
What's interesting is Jay-Z, and again, I think he is the pioneer of this in a lot of ways, but all of the major artists came through a couple of people. One was Cash Money Records, who's literally birthed some of the biggest artists in the world, Drake, Nicki Minaj, Lil Wayne, but Jay-Z as well. So every artist that's been closely tied to Jay-Z has blown up, from Kanye West to Rihanna, Beyoncé in particular as well, J. Cole. Not saying that every single one of these people has direct ties with secret societies or whatever, but he's kind of like the flagship person that's taking these artists and blowing them up. And then we see that same pattern and imagery throughout their music as well.
Question. Can you detach secret society from just skill? So can it be said that, hey, give Jay-Z his props. Maybe he's just really good at what he does. He's really good in the industry, and he can take a talent and blow them up. It has nothing to do with spiritualism or secret societies.
Yeah, I mean, I would probably say, all things considered, you can blow up an artist without all of the secret society stuff for the most part, right? And what I kind of mean by that is, obviously these people have to be somewhat talented. Obviously Rihanna can sing. Obviously Beyoncé can sing. Kanye West is a great artist. Like, these people that are tied to him, they have talent. But when you think about kind of the system and the music industry itself, it's a system of control, and there is an agenda that needs to be pushed. So if you go along with the agenda, or you allow yourself to be coerced into pushing the agenda, you're going to be fine. And you might even advance further depending on how far you want to take that agenda. But when somebody comes up to you and says, hey, this is how we're going to shoot your music video, and you push back and say, I don't want my music video to include that. Or, hey, I want you to say these things, these lyrics from this song. I don't want to say that in this song. Then you're going to kind of be fighting that system. And I mean, I don't want to jump too far ahead, but like with Kanye West, for example, he was nowhere but on an uphill trajectory for a long, long time, right? And you'll see that his career and what he did and what he said aligned perfectly with the agenda that was being pushed. But on his most recent projects, he's kind of deterred from that agenda quite a bit. And you see the machine kind of turn on him, I personally think his last album, Jesus is King, is one of his better projects, but really bad critical acclaim, low first week sales numbers, botched rollout. It just kind of seems like as soon as you start going against the machine, they're going to kind of pull away their support from you. So that would kind of be my answer, is the talent does have to be there, and people can get successful from just their talent and their hard work. But there is a ceiling to it, unless you want to go with what the machine says.
They own the microphone. That's what the crazy part is. And it's like all of a sudden you don't talk their talk and walk their walk. Then they just shut the microphone off or take it away from you. And then what are you going to do? Go stand on the street corner and talk to 100 people? So it's like they've got this machine that is very difficult to operate outside of that machine, and it's real easy for them to cut you off if you don't play along with what they're doing.
Yeah, it's like us trying to get our content out there without YouTube. Well, we're not going to use YouTube anymore. Well, good luck having a channel.
I mean, if we had to literally boil it down to DVDs and panhandle them out the back of our cars, I mean, we'd reach a few people, but not like we would just because we're using their system.
Yeah.
I've noticed what you're saying. Lately, it seems like the talent isn't even there anymore, though. You got the mumble rappers and everything. So you see the person on the bridge playing, and they're just like, man, they sound amazing. They got a great voice. They're playing the guitar, and you're like, why aren't you signed? Well, because there's something that you're signing to when you sign a record deal. So I think, like you're saying, if you don't have the right agenda, you don't have the right look, the right words, the right music video or whatever, then you're never going to get anywhere. And I know with Michael Jackson, he started speaking out at concerts. He was telling the crowd about, that the owner of Sony is the devil and this and that, and everybody's all cheering, yeah. And he's like, don't let this go in one ear and out the other. And it did. They were just cheering because Michael Jackson's talking to you, but they weren't getting the message, what he was saying. And what I've seen in his life was that he did have talent. He had the singing, the dancing, and all that, and he really didn't need the label. He could have started his own label. Same with Prince. But both of those people had their image attacked big time. And with Prince, he wrote the word slave on his face, and he had his own record label. And I don't know if Michael Jackson ever had his own record label, but I know that he was speaking out against the label. Yeah. And you see where they're both dead now. I mean, if that means anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in a recent interview, Kanye West with Joe Rogan was saying he's been speaking out against record labels as well, if you guys have followed that at all. And he's been saying like, we're slaves, essentially. We should own our masters. This is the new Me Too movement. People are getting taken advantage of. And with Joe Rogan, he was talking about, I see what happened to Michael Jackson. I see what happened to Prince. And it makes me think. And the insinuation was that he's going against the labels and he's going against the powers that be. Could something happen to him? And I'm not saying that, I don't want to dive down that trail necessarily, but it's just kind of interesting to think that the most prominent artist, probably one of the most prominent artists in the world, is saying that in response to his rebellion, if you would, against the label.
It's fascinating because you just see how no matter what system it is or what world it is, the devil always has the same tactic, and it's you either do it my way or I'm going to shut you down, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
And so when Christianity sprang up in the first century, it was like, oh no, I'm going to shut that down, right? God has never been like that. God is like, you know what? I'm so confident that my way is going to work. You can say whatever you want. And in the end, I'll let you play it out so you can try to prove your point. And you're going to prove that it's not going to work. And in the end, yes, you're going to be destroyed because I'm going to let you take that full course of freedom to show that what you're doing doesn't work. The devil doesn't let you get that far. He's like, no. It's going to be my way or you're going to get shut down.
Yeah.
But isn't it interesting? I mean, jumping off of that thought, I mean, that's why God said, I'm going to lay you before kings. They're going to see what you're all about. I'm going to pull the wool off their eyes, and you're going to see how the end conclusion of this happens. But it's like this way that the devil operates. You do it, or I'm going to kill you, or take you out, or whatever. And then that's his accusation against God. Like, oh, you just want to force people, and you're going to do it. And it's like he's throwing that at God's face, but that's really how he operates.
Yep.
Yeah. Wow. It's so true, and it's incredible to hear that. I mean, when we get into this and you kind of see how far these artists are willing to take it, it makes you think, like, is there no limit, and is that fear lurking in the back of their mind that they could just have their career ended, their livelihood taken away if they do anything but follow kind of the trend. So this next slide, again, just kind of continue to build off of this habit and this context. I'd like to give the context because I think it's important for people to understand where I'm coming from. I really don't like to have someone be like, oh, this person said one thing in this one song, or he wore this shirt one time, and that's their entire identity. But we could see up here in this on this slide, upper left-hand corner, Jay-Z wearing the 5% Nation chain, which he's worn quite a bit. If you guys are unfamiliar, I would check that out. Anyone watching, the 5% Nation is a group of religious believers, I believe Islam in origin, who believe that 5% of people are aware and woke to the idea that they themselves are gods, and like literal gods, capital G. His shirt, "Do What Thou Wilt." This is coined from a Lester Crowley, who was called the most wicked man in America. The fact that he's rocking that merchandise and has other merchandise with similar imagery, similar, all-seeing eye, that kind of thing. One of his most famous signs is actually a mudra. So the diamond, the rock that he calls it, that he throws up, is actually a, maybe you guys can speak to this a little bit better. Like, I don't know how to describe a mudra, but essentially it's a gesture that invokes a spirit, is essentially what it is from what I understand. And he's always putting his eye through it for that all-seeing eye. So again, this pattern of behavior and lyrics, and the lyric that I have up here is from one of his more popular songs called Empire State, which features Alicia Keys. And he says, "Hail Mary to the city, you're a virgin, and Jesus can't save you. Life starts when the church ends." So again, these consistent lyrics, consistent themes, consistent topics really, to me, paint a picture of what he is trying to push and where kind of his allegiance lies when it comes to secret societies or anything like that.
And it's so crazy because that song is iconic. I mean, that goes on and New York City goes crazy. But then there's that one line in the song, and it's hard. It's hard to throw out a whole song because of that one line, especially because of the energy that comes from it. So, yeah.
Who is the gentleman in the top middle there?
That's the founder of the 5% Nation. I forget his name. I think it's Muhammad Farah, something like that. But he is the founder of the 5% Nation.
Throwing a mudra over a audience. I remember seeing a documentary about Led Zeppelin one time, and Jimmy Page, whenever he would play the guitar, he was real big into witchcraft. In fact, he bought Aleister Crowley's house, did all this like witchcraft stuff, and when he would play his guitar, he'd play it with a bowstring like you would a violin, and he would do this east-west thing like this over the whole audience, and he was like literally casting a spell as they're sitting there listening to him. So that scares me when Jay-Z's walking into an audience and he's holding up stuff that's invoking spirits. He's pulling them into that room.
Holding it up.
Yeah.
It's a giant worship service, and then H to the Izzo comes on.
Yeah,
and people are saying Hova, Hova.
Hands up in the air, I mean, it's just like...
Absolutely. And to speak to Candy's point too, that idea, people are so attached to songs and so attached to like the way it makes them feel. For me, it was like that for a long time. But what I kind of found too is that once I started understanding these truths and things were being revealed to me, and even Empire State is on an album called The Blueprint 3, which has a ton of symbolism, more than I'm going to get into right now. But I just realized, like, if I allow this in my life still, the way that it makes me feel is not going to be worth the consequence of the strongholds that I'm giving to the devil or to like demons that might want to attack me, because I'm putting this in my life and I'm putting this in my mind. And even when you don't verbalize a lyric, I know for you guys, I know for myself, I don't know about you guys, but when I commit a song to memory, I can literally do the whole song from memory. And even if I don't say it, I still think it, So even if that song was to play and I'm like, I'm not going to say that lyric, I'm still thinking and I'm still hearing it and I'm still participating. So, I would encourage anyone, if you have a hard time letting go of some of that music, just think about the spiritual implications and, where you want to be in your walk as a Christian, or even someone just trying to, clean up the type of content they listen to.
Absolutely. And I wanted to add to my point that it speaks to the devil's tactic that, yes, it's going to make you feel good. It's going to probably seem right, just like that little drop of poison in the juice. So having that line is actually enough to toss the whole song.
Absolutely.
I just wanted to bring out something that Jesus said, because art is an expression, right? It's an expression of what is in the heart and mind. That's why you do it, whether it be poetry or music or painting or what have you. It's an expression of what's inside of you. And Jesus said in Luke 6:45, a good man out of the good treasure of his heart brings forth good, and an evil man out of the evil treasure of his heart brings forth evil. For out of the abundance of the heart, his mouth speaks. Art is essentially a way of speaking, right? It may not always be with words, but it's speaking. And that's what is inside of you. It's what's in your heart that's being projected forward. So, if it's not good, one has to question, like, well, what's in the heart and mind if the expression is not lining up with things that are biblical?
Yeah, Keith, but I don't listen to the words. I'm here for the beat. What do you have to say to that?
Well, you watched a couple of weeks ago, we had a show on music, and we talk about the beat and everything too.
That's right.
Well, what's interesting too is someone else might even say, like, oh, well, Jay-Z didn't write that song, or Rihanna didn't write that song. Someone else wrote that song for her. She's just performing. I can assure you that whoever's writing it, that same scripture is true. Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. So anyone writing it, anyone producing it, even with the beat too, like, I don't really have a huge issue with like hip hop beats, like there's a certain line I'll kind of draw, but I've been in studio sessions with producers way back when. There's a lot of drug use. There's a lot of like colors. There's candles lit. I don't want to say it's like a seance necessarily, but something is happening, right? Something is happening during that creation process, and whatever is present in that room is going into that music. So you might listen only to the instrumentals, but I promise you something is happening there as well. So good thing to keep that in mind.
Music is a spiritual experience. I mean, I remember watching an interview with Kanye West. In fact, Kendi showed me this interview, and it was amazing how he started talking about when he started making Christian, his Sunday service, and he started making music that was leaning for the Sunday service. He was like, I'm not going to play this particular drums here. I'm not going to play this particular things here. And he said, it's not appropriate in this setting. And to me, I was like, whoa, like there's an appropriate time and place for all these different things. And I think that there's some things that are not appropriate in that setting for sure.
Yeah, and the Bible takes it seriously, whether it's our words or not, where it says, guard the avenues of your soul and speak only that which is pure. Life and death is in the power of the tongue. Doesn't matter if it's your words or not. If you're constantly saying it, it's impacting not just you, but those around you.
If you're reiterating it,
yeah,
whether you're the listener who's listening to the song that the artist is producing, or whether it's the artist that's delivering it from somebody else who wrote it, you're only going to be speaking things that you believe, right? That's just the way it is. I'm not going to go around quoting John Donne from 17th century if I didn't think that what he had to say was worth repeating.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, whether they wrote it or not, the fact that they agreed to sing it on a record shows a lot about their character,
And that's part of that coercion process, right? So the devil always wants you to submit and just a little bit, give in a little bit more, a little bit more. And before you know it, you're the frog in the pot of boiling water. So to kind of piggyback or to segue into this, Jay-Z, I think, is the pioneer for a lot of this stuff. And he's not the only person pushing this agenda, obviously, but he's one of the leading people, and everyone that's tied to him are some of the biggest names in music. So the first person, which is going to surprise a lot of people, that really kind of bought into this and became a part of this, I don't know what you want to call it, right? Like the secret society or this formula for being successful that involves occult symbolism and taking part in this is actually Beyoncé. So if you guys are familiar with pop culture at all, Beyoncé went so far as to come out in 2003, and she and Jay-Z were starting to date, right? And this music video comes out for a song called Crazy in Love. And that was the birth, as we'll see a little bit later, where she becomes Sasha Fierce. And she actually comes out with this album called I Am. Interesting use of I Am ... Sasha Fierce. It features songs called Halo, If I Were a Boy. And I mean, you could see in some of the lyrics here and some of the imagery, making horns on herself because she's Sasha Fierce. She has paint on. She's wearing a Baphomet head on her shirt. The Rolling Stones did a cover story, and it's it says a woman possessed. And there's a video actually that's going to come up after this as well, where she's with Oprah and she talks about how Sasha Fierce possesses her, and as she goes on stage, she becomes this new person, right? It's also interesting that Halo, the leading single on this album, had a couple of lyrics in here that I want to point out. So, remember the walls that I built, they're tumbling down. They didn't put up a fight. They didn't make a sound. I found a way to let you in, but I never really had a doubt. Standing in the light of your halo, I got my angel now. And in the pre-chorus, she even goes to say, it's like I've been awakened. Every rule I had you breaking, the risk that I'm taking, I'm never going to shut you out. This is a really powerful, these lyrics mean something. And the way that she's saying it, if you watch the music video, even she's sleeping and she lifts off the bed. Like if you've ever seen those witchcraft movies where they're bent over backwards, they look like they're being possessed. Same thing in this music video for Halo. So there's no doubt in my mind that it's some sort of form of demon possession that she's pushing. And this Sasha Fierce character, like she says, is literally taking control of her.
Yeah, I don't know of anything in the Bible that talks about a good angel that you can find a way to let them in. I know about Legion, and that's not a good angel, but when it says, I found a way to let you in, that sounds very demonic possession, and I don't think that can be flipped.
There's no place in the Bible that actually tells it's okay for an angel to be inside of you. We know that can happen through demonic possession. We know those are fallen angels that can do that. Yeah. But there's nowhere that says a good angel would ever enter into you for any reason. Yeah. That's not his place. That's God's place. And he's supposed to be the one that dwells inside of us. And we pray that God will dwell inside of our hearts. But the devil has usurped that and come in and taken control.
Wow.
And yeah, if you want to, these are words coming out of her mouth. So anyone saying that Sasha Fierce is XYZ, just listen to exactly what Beyoncé is saying.
So, like when you're getting ready to go on stage and perform, does Sasha Fierce, when does she show up?
Usually when I hear the crowd, when I put on my stilettos, when like the moment right before when you're nervous and that other thing kind of takes over for you. Then Sasha Fierce appears, and my posture and the way I speak and everything is different.
But no, is it like a process that happens too? Like you were talking about the high heels, like once the lashes go on and the makeup and all that stuff.
It's kind of like when I do a movie, becoming the character. Once you put on the wig and once you put on the clothes, you walk different.
Yeah.
It's kind of this character that I've created over the years.
And how is Sasha Fierce different than I Am?
Well, I know, definitely wearing that bodysuit. I could never walk out here and do that.
Does Sasha Fierce ever go home? Like,
sometimes, but not often. Only on special occasions.
She ever show up? She shows up sometimes at the house. Yes.
But definitely when I'm nervous or whenever I have to perform, whenever I have to do choreography or something that's difficult, and it's no different from anyone else. I feel like we all kind of have that thing that takes over when it's...
Interesting she related what she's doing to acting.
Yeah.
Just leave that there.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's something that
can
we've
use
discussed.
anything.
Yeah, that we discussed on this. I mean, I took acting classes, and that was one of the methods that they really taught you to do, is to empty yourself of yourself and to like let this other character inhabit you, so that your thoughts and your actions and everything were actually, what that character would experience. And often some of the activities that we would do in the acting classes was take a shower. So what we would pretend to do is like, scrub ourselves and do all these stuff. And then if your character would do that in a certain way, fast, slow, whatever, you're thinking those thoughts, and it's really training yourself to open yourself up to this other character that's not you.
Wow.
So what I think is also interesting is how she's literally like, this is a Christian woman that has come from, I mean, wasn't their band originally called Destiny's Child? Yeah. Right? And like, didn't they have like a lot of Christianity type almost imagery even in the very beginning?
They started in the church. Yeah, she started singing in church.
Right. And so this is not somebody who is completely unaware of the world around them, that there could be a spiritual influence around them, and yet she's just totally openly okay with saying that is the case.
Yeah, I wonder where that started to become a slippery slope. Like what happened? I mean, what happened to the other two chicks in Destiny's Child? They're probably still Christian, hopefully, but she's the one that rose to fame, right?
Mm-hmm. Right until there's a reunion and the paycheck's good, we could wait a little bit, I'm just kidding. But yeah, it's very interesting how that, I don't know, how that kind of like her expression of it is that something is possessing her. This is a quote from African Bambaataa that I think is a good just middle point here. This is a guy who pretty much helped found hip hop, one of the forefathers of hip hop. And, he literally says, I absolutely think there's a Luciferian conspiracy to take over hip hop. And he goes on to kind of express that these people putting on the music, they don't really know what hip hop is. They're just kind of following this agenda. And really at the end of the day, hip hop's been hijacked. And I thought that was just kind of an interesting quote, primarily because this is one of the forefathers of hip hop, right? If anybody knows the roots of it, what it's meant to do, what it should be, it would be African Bambaataa. So him coming out and saying that on a public forum like the Chicago Sun-Times really spoke a lot to me. And I thought it'd be valuable to put it in here.
Yeah, that's pretty eye-opening. I mean, what he's saying, though, I mean, you can literally prove it. You look at Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and some of these old rappers from the 80s, like the Humpty Dance and all this stuff. Like those songs were mostly about having a party, having a good time. Yeah, they might have been about immoral things like girls but then it became gangster rap, which even got more immoral, but they still weren't talking about sacrificing people, or they weren't putting satanic symbols on their albums. And then look at it today. I mean, we can prove exactly what he's saying, that a Luciferian conspiracy is taking over hip hop over time.
It's interesting because it's like, why hip hop? Like you don't, like, just hear me out, because you don't see a lot of that in country, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's other genres. It's just like you don't see a lot of it. So why hip hop over like other genres? Like why hijack that?
I don't know, but just remembering the episode on music we did previously, I wonder if it's like the frequency. It has anything to do with the frequency and what's actually happening within the body, and how those messages can be received better with that frequency versus country or any other one.
Yeah, you got to figure, at the end of the day, a lot of it's about money. And so the people that have money, they see there's something there that they see, some potential, right? Some opportunity for gain. And with, generally with money, not in every case, but generally with money comes power and control.
Could be a lot.
So,
culture.
Yeah, it's just fascinating.
I think like how Akande opened up this conversation with saying, like, hip hop really touched every facet of your youth and your childhood, and was like a big influential part of your growing up. I don't know, maybe more people appeal to that type of like, cool factor, the style of clothing or whatever, and it's maybe easier to emulate that not everybody's going to wear snake boots and a big old belt buckle, Maybe this is just some genre that actually appeals to a wide variety of people.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Satan wants to get the most people, cast the biggest net, so yeah, back when I was listening to gothic metal, all this stuff, it was full of occult imagery, but not many people were listening to it. It wasn't even on MTV or anything. But you can ask almost anybody, what's your favorite style of music? Somebody might say country. Well, I hate country, despise it, could never listen to it. But all those same people, I bet if you took a poll, there'd be rap or hip hop would be like the biggest out of everybody's.
You should Google this.
Yeah. I mean, there's something about the beat that makes you nod your head. Even when me and my friend were making dark music, there was something we were like, we want it to be metal, but we want you to be able to bob your head to it. So we threw hip hop beats in there just so you could have this head bob factor.
I think it's
to
because of how versatile it is. You could throw hip hop in country and anything.
Here we go. This is from Statista. Okay. This says, as of May 2018. Here we go. Number one, the people that they polled in the U.S., pop was 56%. Country was 49%, almost 50%. Ooh. R&B and soul was 38.9%, and hip hop was 34.4%.
So it's not really that high.
Yeah, so it's like, I still go back to like, you would think pop,
Yeah.
Well, what's interesting is that most of the big pop songs that come out usually feature a rap artist on them. So I wonder how many of people's favorite pop songs include some sort of rap artist as well,
Can you speak to what pop is? And isn't that just popular music? So that can kind of go across the whole spectrum once it's popular? Or is that incorrect?
Yeah, I mean, you could definitely, pop music is definitely popular music, but there's a sound to it. It's usually a singer. You usually don't have like pop rappers, maybe sometimes someone like Flo Rida. But if you think of like pop, like Justin Bieber, the pioneers of pop, Madonna, Michael Jackson, it's really going to be singing primarily. And it's usually going to maybe more recently incorporate rap, but rap and hip hop is kind of like a specific style of music, like fast cadences, maybe some singing, elements of autotune, 808s. Pop music doesn't usually have super heavy 808s, for example, so maybe.
But the satanic stuff's infiltrating that too. Look at Kesha and Lady Gaga. These are pop stars with occult imagery everywhere.
Yeah. If you go back to the beginning of hip hop, though, it was a genre that was designed to like have a cultural voice. I mean, it was like people were frustrated with the things that were going on around them, and it was kind of like, the rhymes and the things were to deal with the world that was around them. And then now it literally has been hijacked into this Luciferian, agenda. It's crazy.
Here's crazy though. Just as we're talking about this, I was kind of looking further down the line. Hypebeast is reporting that Nielsen Music says that hip hop was the most popular genre of 2020.
Of 2020. Okay, so over the years it's become more popular, I guess. I mean, look at the number one on charts for a while was Cardi B, WAP. I mean, that's just mind blowing in itself.
Yeah. I was gonna cover their video and all the occult symbolism there. It was just too much.
There's no so much good way to bring that song up.
Yeah.
None.
Yeah. I try to keep it concise as possible, but literally nowadays, every single major artist and every single major video has occult symbolism in it. There is not one that doesn't. Well, I take that back. Maybe someone like J. Cole, I don't know, even then it's a little bit more veiled, but it's always very blatant. Every single time, without failure, you can find it. Just like with most movies today, you know what you're gonna get right from the trailer, and it's the same thing.
I almost feels like, even they know we're at the end of time. Even the devil knows we're at the end of the time. And he's just like, okay, time to ramp it up. No more, I can't hide this in like every 10th video. It's got to be in like every video, you know?
Speaking of that exactly, have you seen Busta Rhymes' latest stuff?
Oh, don't spoil it. I'm gonna talk about that. I'm gonna talk about that. No, I mean, it's everywhere. The next artist I wanted to cover, we kind of looked at Beyoncé, and we don't have enough time to cover Lemonade and her most recently released Disney Plus film Africa is King. Lots of stuff in there, but the next artist I wanted to talk about was Kanye West. Now, Kanye West has recently come out and repented for a lot of his stuff, and I think, for lack of an entire context, a view into his life, I think he is a genuine, repentant believer in Christ, and I really do believe that if he sticks to it and he just keeps committing himself to Christ, I think he can have an incredible Christian walk, and we can all witness it. it's not to discount him being eclectic or anything like that. So as I'm diving into this, I want to talk from that context of I do think he's repented for this. But for the longest time, Kanye West was one of the premier guys pushing this occult symbolism. Most specifically, I think it really ramped up to 11 because it existed before, but it ramped up to 11 on his album, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. So the first single on this album was called Power. And Power is this single shot video, really iconic the way that it was shot. But you see a ton of symbolism just in this 3-minute video with this single shot that's just panning out. The first thing that you see right away is Kanye West standing in between these two pillars, which is very clearly Masonic imagery. Whenever there was initiation or the ladder of ascension, it's always between these two Roman-style pyramids. The giant Horus necklace that he was wearing for the entire promo of this album as well, you know, the all-seeing eye is commonly attributed to being the Eye of Horus. So another very blatant occult symbolism. The two angels, those two demons I would call them, standing on the left and right of him as he kind of pans out at the very beginning, you know, can be drawn back to a lot of things aside from just the demon imagery. But in Egyptian times, there was often sun discs with ox horns, and they would place that on the head of kind of the guardians of whoever it was. And then, of course, at the very end of the video, there's this very veiled but clear to see when you watch the video, a Freemason compass that kind of pops out at the very end to kind of form it. If you could advance to the next slide as well, these kind of go hand in hand. But My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy also had, aside from the song content, because there's a lot of it, there's a song called Devil in a New Dress where he literally chants the name Satan. So pretty crazy there. But there's a short film in which a angel falls from heaven while he's driving, hits his car, he gets out to look at the angel, and the angel comes with him. He goes to make music, he starts producing, the angel starts dancing, this woman, he goes out to dinner with her, introduces him to all his friends, and then at the very end of the video, he tries to reject the angel, and the angel ascends into heaven and essentially turns into like a fiery ball or a star and blasts into heaven. This is a short film accompanying the actual album. And in the right-hand corner, you guys can see the original cover art for the album was actually Kanye West fornicating with an angel, right? So this kind of imagery to me, what's a fallen angel? Who's the only fallen angel that we see really attributed in the Bible? Who dances to the music, is making Kanye West almost produce better music. And this idea that they're sleeping together or some sort of relationship is happening, it's really blatant. And when I first saw this, you know, this was after my time at Full Sail, after I'd kind of come full circle. But just seeing this play out in real time, knowing that it existed, I was just blown away on how blatant it was. And I mean, I don't know if you guys have ever seen this, but what's your reaction when you see something like that? Is it, oh, this is creative, or is there a deeper meaning that's veiled there?
We're not talking about spaceships and alien technology here. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many things to talk about. It's like, why does it always gravitate to this literal like war between God and Satan, or this angelic Christian ideology that's placed in these things? It's like, to me, when you have a pattern like that, a pattern denotes intelligence. That intelligence, to me, tells me there's purpose behind it. And if there's purpose behind it, what are they trying to say? That seems like a lot of dark imagery. It's not teaching you how to be a more righteous or better person.
What's amazing to me that when we talk about these things, more than one occasion, people have been like, not everything's about religion. Why are you trying to make everything about religion? Well, because the anime calls him Mr. Satan, and there's a car that says 666. Yeah. Like, we're not making it about religion. They are. Why are they making it about religion?
Those people creating it are, yeah.
Right, which makes you question, is this real? I think that's the thing about looking into this, is it's like, hopefully the audience that is watching this and maybe be on the fence or whatever, just would have that question mark in their head and say, you know what? There is something to that. I mean, if there's so much of this imagery in there, then maybe I should look into it.
Yeah, and this all kind of ties into really what that question is, why, right? And I think the why, when we look at hip hop, secret societies, and that final point, hidden agendas, the why is, I think, to make people more and more numb to this, so that younger and younger audiences can commit these songs to memory, can attend these concerts, and really have their lives saturated so heavily with the presence of the devil and demons, right? Like, just to be very cut and dry, when an album like this comes out, or an artist comes out and blows up, I think every single song, I think every album, I think every music video has a very deep meaning and a very profound effect on the people listening or watching. So when I see an artist, not to drift too far from the point here, but when I see an artist like The Weeknd, who's been consistently putting this kind of symbolism, who's been consistently putting this kind of message, who has very explicit lyrics and very explicit imagery and all of the stuff that he does, when he's going to perform at the Super Bowl this year and 40 million people are going to have their eyes on him, or when Beyoncé performs at the Super Bowl and 40 million people are going to have their eyes on him, what I see is just a mass worship service for the devil. And I think that when we partake in it, we are definitely doing something more than just putting a song in the background. We're definitely taking a step and allowing something into our lives. And I think that's the real reason, is so that the devil can get as much worship as he possibly can, and he can tap the minds of the younger audience. Because, the way that you raise a child, they'll stay with it until they're an adult. Scripture says that. I think the same is true across the board. I think it's a universal truth, whether they're going to be raised up with Christian values and a love for Christ, or they're going to be raised with other values and a love, of the world.
You brought up something that was kind of interesting to me when we were watching that clip with Beyoncé, how she said, Sasha Fierce always shows up when I'm about ready to perform. And, that's kind of an interesting thought, because it's like, if those demonic entities are literally the ones that are up front getting all that worship, I mean, that's the end goal, right? They want that worship. I mean, that's exactly why Lucifer did what he did. He wants that worship. And so maybe this is a way for them to vicariously live through those eyes and then receive that worship. And then as soon as that concert's over, they're like, shh, forget this body, gone.
Yeah, they get to stand on stage and look at a sea of people raising their hands and saying, Beyonce, or whatever.
Yeah.
And
yeah, it's a big old worship service. And the audience for these musicians is trending younger and younger. So when we look at now 2020, 2018, 2019, 2021, there's artists that are like so blatant that I could literally walk up to one of these kids that is a fan of these artists, let's look at this, right? And they'll be like, I don't care. This guy in particular, his name is Lil Uzi Vert. Lil Uzi Vert, that's Lil Lucifer, right? You guys don't pick up on the phonetic, how that's being pronounced. He has a song on his album EXO Tour Life that's called 444 plus 222. I mean, he talks about how all of his friends are dead, how he wants to commit suicide. In his music videos, there's I can't even show some of the stuff. It's so graphic, people are dead, they're dead walking, all this kind of stuff. It's just crazy. His lyrics are written in Aramaic, but they're written backwards, which is really which a lot of witches and witchcraft use to cast spells, is backwards Aramaic.
And read scripture back.
On a video, he literally says he sold his soul to the devil. I mean, it goes on and on and on, and even the fact that he wears upside down crosses and that kind of thing as well. But this guy is in your face, blatant about it, and is one of the most popular artists in hip hop right now, and has been for the last 2 or 3 years. So if that doesn't kind of spark someone's awareness, I don't know what else could. His name is Lil Uzi Vert. I'm like, come on, people. But the themes and the symbolism has been so blatant that I think people are dull to it as a result.
Yeah, I think when it's constantly in the background like this as well, I think you just kind of get numb to it, like you said, and you get sleepy to it. You know what I mean? You're not awake to it.
And these other artists as well, these are young kids. He might be 24. There's other artists as well. 3 of them have died in the last 3 years. These all have been very popular artists with the same kind of things, talking about the same kind of things. And I think there's something sinister about music from an artist that's passed away being released even more, and the images that they use in their music videos. So there's a guy, XXXTentacion, who came out. He did an IG live right before he died, and he said, if I have to be a sacrifice, I don't care, yada, yada, yada. There was a tweet that went out on Twitter saying that he's going to die today. He had a music video where he was hanging a small kid. The symbolism is rampant, and he was killed. He was murdered. Another guy, Juice WRLD, who you could see up in the right-hand corner, Dance with Satan, one of his songs, overdosed on a plane ride. He took a bunch of drugs on the plane and arrived dead at the location. The guy on the lower right-hand side, his name is Lil Peep. Multiple songs talking about he's meeting Satan. Satan's coming to get him. Another guy who died of an overdose. So the agenda here, I think, is all about what he can do to hijack the youth and twist them. Because I'm not listening to these guys. Most of my peers aren't listening to these guys, but the kids are. the youngest age group, and you might be able to pull this up, Keith, if you're able to, but the youngest age group for hip hop is as early as 13 to 16. So when you have these types of images and these types of lyrics being committed to memory by these young kids, I think the ultimate hidden agenda is that he could steal the youth away from us and train them up to be soldiers for his army. I know that sounds really grim and really, really scary, or like maybe I'm thinking, apocalyptic here, but when I see that we're in the end times and this is what's being pushed so heavily to the youth, that's the one thing I kind of draw up, is that they're looking to numb us so that when it's time for that worship to happen, when it's time for those end time events to take place, they're perfectly primed to accept whatever's fed to them.
I mean, it seems like every generation has had this sort of, rebellion, especially in the music industry, rebellion against the parents,
Absolutely.
the system, and it's like a separation, like get the kids away from the parents and then, send them to the concerts and teach them these ways through this, music industry and stuff. I remember like the 60s, hey, teachers, leave them kids alone, like that kind of mentality has been sort of in all the genres, not just hip hop. And you definitely see it pretty heavily in hip hop.
Did you find statistics on that?
Yeah, I was looking, and you definitely see that. Of course, the first one I could pull up was only, like from 16 to 19, and you can definitely see they're definitely into hip hop and into pop music.
It's weird because you mentioned like as young as 13, but I think kids grow up with music in their life all their life. I mean, even the kids' cartoons now, like there's a new one called Trolls or whatever, and it's all about music.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the whole thing is about music. Yeah. And one of the characters has an auto-tune voice and stuff like that. But I remember being exposed to rap music basically all my life, as long as I can think back to, and those were the years when I was in elementary school, hearing Snoop Dogg and Tupac and all that, and Bone Thugs. So, I mean, I was really young.
And music is more and more accessible than ever before. It's ubiquitous. So if you have a phone, you can get Spotify, Pandora, YouTube. If you have, 3 or LTE, like cellular data, you can listen to it whenever you want, most of the time for free with ads. So it's not even like, oh, you have to save up your $20 and go to the store and buy a CD, or even you have to have a computer with internet that you can bootleg one song that takes a day to download. You can get it on demand instantly, or have whenever you want.
Yeah, or have batteries for a big boombox or whatever. It's just in your pocket. I mean, I remember those days that I was talking about with Snoop Dogg, like it was an audio cassette tape, and you're not going to listen to that unless you're in a house, most likely, or in a car. But yeah, like you're saying, you can be anywhere and listen to your phone.
But, to conclude this, I know this has kind of like been doom and gloom, and I definitely don't mean it to be, but I think it's important to kind of look at these things and understand them, and hopefully this can help people inform themselves better. On TikTok, I've been making a lot of these short clips and kind of sharing with people, and the response has been overwhelmingly, this makes so much sense. I used to chant this song, and being able to reveal it, I think, is important, because people might have good intentions, they're just not aware. But looking at scripture, Psalm 101, I think, is really important, and something that I kind of turn to and meditate on and recite when I think about things that I watch or listen to. And Psalm 101:3, I will set no wicked things before my eyes. I hate the work of them that fall away. It shall not cling to me. A perverse heart shall depart from me. I will know not wickedness. When you're committing these song lyrics to memory, you're listening to it all the time, you're allowing it to inhabit you, affect your mood. I think that's exactly what David is warning against here in this psalm. Also 1 Corinthians 2:14, but the natural man does not receive the things of the Spirit of God, for they are foolishness to him, nor can he discern them, because they're spiritually discerned. I think a lot of this too just flies over people's heads, because spiritual things require spiritual discernment. And if you're not aware or spiritually considering what you're watching or consuming, I think it can just zoom past you. So we really have to pray on these things, obviously, and allow the Holy Spirit to lead us. And the last verse that I wanted to mention here was primarily Revelation 12:9. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. So the whole world is being deceived. So the idea that we can know better and that we can say, we're not being affected, I think is kind of silly. I think we have to call upon the Holy Spirit. And it might have been the music one that you guys did with Kendi's mom when she was talking about like the survey that was done, and everybody thought that the music or whatever they did affected them the least. And in reality, everyone else was affected, but they could control it. I think we have to be careful, because if we're not, we can be deceived. And if we're not using that discernment of Christ, we could definitely fall into temptation.
I just want to kind of circle back to what you were saying. The first scripture you quoted was from which book again?
Psalms.
It was from the
Psalm
Psalms.
113.
And what are most of the Psalms? They're
They're
songs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
And, you know, if you think about that, God knew, and, you know, he's the one that made us. He created us. He knows how we work. And he knows that we have a better memory when things are put to music, you know, for remembering them. And you think about all these Psalms that are written, a lot of them they're praise to God. They're meant to be uplifting. Yes, some of them talk about the times of despair and things like that. But I would say a good majority of them are meant to encourage you and be uplifting. In the book of Revelation, if you read the book, and it's a little hard to tell in a King James, but in a New King James you can tell a little bit easier because it denotes the poetic parts. There are multiple songs in the book of Revelation.
I think this information was incredible and good for us to know when you're dealing with what I should and shouldn't listen to, and maybe you find like this really nice song, but it's a little ambiguous and you're not really sure what they're getting at. Now I'd say consider the source. You know, go and look at the person and what they believe, their lifestyle, see what they're involved in, find those patterns and track records. If they have a career, you're going to find something. And absolutely pray, ask the Holy Spirit to guide you in the decisions that you make and the media that you choose to consume.
Yeah. Word of caution, though, it is a rabbit hole. It is
That's
very
true.
dark,
That's true.
and it is very deep.
Yeah.
And I don't know if anybody's ever seen the bottom of it. So you can actually fall off into the rabbit hole, and it gets weirder and weirder.
That's what they call the bottomless pit.
Right. And so, you know, just word of caution. We need to not be ignorant of the devil's devices. This is why we do this on the show, is to allow people to say, hey, look, there's a war going on around us, right? We need to be aware of what's being thrown at us. But at the same time, it can suck you in and blind you from the real focus, and that is a relationship with Jesus. Right. So, you know, keep that into perspective whenever you start looking into this kind of stuff. And, you know, this is really about how does this fit into our relationship with Christ?
Right.
Good point.
Well said, man. And, you know, the one thing that I found coming from Full Sail, when I was so wrapped up into this and so determined to be successful and so, you know, wanting that stardom, I did go down this rabbit hole and I fell into a pit of despair, and I was like, well, what's even real? You know, because obviously this can dovetail into a number of different things with secret societies and all this kind of stuff. And kind of what I've found to be true, and Scotty, you kind of said this, but the closer I got to Christ, the easier it was to make decisions about what I would listen to or what I would watch and what I would put in. And if anything even gave me a moment's hesitation, I would just either cut it out or just be like, I could find something else, you know? And if that song comes on, I'm not going to be offended by it. I'm not going to worry about it, but I can find something else. And, you know, in the same way that when you guys talk about media on your show, which has really hit home for me a lot, is, you know, we don't live just to watch television, you know? So if something is offensive to God, we really shouldn't try and navigate like, oh, I'll just watch a little bit of it or watch some of this, or what can I watch? I can't watch anything. None of it's edifying. Hey, well, that's might be a good thing, right? So yeah, I think there's just that level of being cautious about like everything doesn't need to be explored. Every conspiracy doesn't need to be dove into, and you draw closer to Christ, and you know that discernment will be there. Thank you guys so much for having me on. Honestly, it's been a blessing to share, and I hope people are really edified by this and walk away with something that is powerful and profound, and hopefully can make them just turn on that little light bulb and then change up their Spotify playlist.
That's right. Akande, that was really cool. You said you had a channel or something that you were putting videos out on TikTok. Do you want to share that with people so they can find out more if you got other things you want people to look at?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you guys want to see more content like this, I dive into specific songs and artists and reveal this in a little bit deeper way on my YouTube channel. It's just FL Forever. And on TikTok, you could follow me at Floodlight Forever, where I kind of do the exact same thing. I do some other creative things as well to glorify God, but we look at like one little 60-second clip that we could fit in and try and dissect it in the best way possible, because obviously there's time constrictions. But on YouTube I'm doing the same thing, and I've done a few videos on even record contracts and how record contracts can exploit people for slave labor, and how that could be used in the manipulation and coercion of people to push this agenda out. So yeah, would love to be able to share that with you guys if anyone wants to check that out. And yeah, big fan of Little Light Studios, been watching for a while, so God bless your guys' ministry. It's been incredible.
We really appreciate you guys joining us today, and we hope that you learned something. Music is a powerful force, and it teaches us something. You know, those lyrics, they speak to us. Art is an expression, and we should really be asking ourselves, what is in our heart? You know, and if our heart is not filled with the goodness of God, maybe we should be reevaluating, you know, what our circumstance is. So we thank you guys for joining us. We'll hope you join us again for another LED Live, and we will see you next time.
Visit our brothers at schoolforprophets.tv and watch From Babylon to America, which has over 5 million views on YouTube alone, and follow it up with America to Babylon. Check the description below for links to this and more.